Hello, welcome to the second part of my instrument intermediate video series. I'm a FAA commercial pilot, multi-engine and single engine instrument rated. Today we are talking about DME arcs of the Porsche radial interceptions, DME arcs, course reversals, holds, and LS approaches. So in the previous video, we talked about radial interceptions, and now we'll be talking about DME arcs. The prerequisites remain the same. So if you haven't watched the previous video, go back to that video and come back. It's in the same playlist as this, and I have shared the playlist. Okay. Let's talk about DME arcs. And let me share my screen. Right, we are back. We're talking about DME arcs now. The basic here has to be radial intercept, which we talked about in the previous video. So if you have your radial intercepts clear, DME arcs are fairly simple. The concept is very simple. So if you have a navigational aid or a fix for a GPS, let's consider navigational aid for conventional purposes and looking at conventional instruments as of now. Okay, let's consider the same nav aid. That's Foxtrot Lima Yankee fly, right? So the concept is you keep the navigational aid or the fix as your center and you make an arc, just like you take a compass, you put the point at whatever point you want to, and then you make a circle around it or an arc around it. That's the whole deal even here. So your navigational aid or the fix is the tip of your compass and your plane being your marker, right? So you're making a circle or arc around it at a certain distance from it. That is your DME distance or your GPS distance. Let's consider DME for now. So you're maintaining a certain distance. Let's take a simple one. Let's take about 6 nautical miles. So you have to be constantly at 6 nautical miles from Foxtrot Lima Yankee at all times and make an arc. Right. That's the whole part of making a DME arc. Now, to understand it better, we go back to our basic concept of radial interceptions. Okay. Now, you just have to make an arc in the sky, right? So how do you do this while maintaining the exact same distance? You can't tie a rope to the VOR and fly around it, but you can do it virtually or by looking at your instruments, right? There's 3 major instruments you'll be looking at here. Your DME distance, that is making you stay at that distance, right? That's why it's called a DME arc or distance in case of GPS. Second part you'll be looking at is your CDI or HSI. CDI is course deviation indicator and HSI is your horizontal situational indicator. Okay. And the last one will be looking at your heading indicator. Okay. Now, we talked about radial interceptions in the previous class. We are making a 90-degree intercept and a 45-degree intercept. In this, for all your DME arcs, you will be intercepting a particular radial that'll be a starting radial. At whatever procedure, we follow the same procedure. Make either a 45-degree intercept or a 90-degree intercept to that radial and start flying inbound or outbound as published or as told by ATC. That's the first part. First step for making a DME arc, intercept a particular radial. Okay. And then you start flying it inbound or outbound as specified. Second step would be you make turns. This is the most important step. If you make a wrong turn towards the wrong direction, then you'll be arcing in the wrong direction. Okay, make the initial turn. Remember, your initial turn is always a 90-degree turn. Okay. Obviously, you turn towards your left or your right. How do you figure out what direction you want to turn? It's fairly simple by looking at your instruments again. Okay. Third step, once you made the initial 90-degree turn, you change your OBS on your CDI. Change your OBS setting. Fourth step would be make a 90-degree intercept to your new setting. Okay, you keep making 90-degree intercepts here onwards to continue onto the last radial you want to intercept, right? Repeat steps 3 and 4 until you reach your LR. LR can be your last radial or lead radial towards the next part of your approach or whatever procedure you're doing, right? When we look at the last part of the series, I'll explain the DME arc and a hold into ILS approach. So you better understand this in the last part. So stay tuned for the entire video series, right? Okay, these are the steps you'll be following to make a DME arc. Now, how do you do this and how does it look virtually, as in how you imagine it looks and how does it look on your instruments? Okay, so let's start off with a simple one. Again, we're talking about fly VOR, right? And this is your 180 radial, right? Let's say you're coming somewhere from the east, or as with respect to the VOR, somewhere in the southeast, okay? And you're going towards the radial. Now, as I told you, first you make an intercept to whatever radial is specified. For this concentration, we're talking about the 180 radial. Let's say you're making a 45-degree intercept to this. So, as we talked about in the previous video, to make a 45-degree intercept, let's consider an outbound intercept. So your radial and your course is the same with the from indication. So 180 with a from indication, right? 180 with a from indication. What heading do you want to turn to make a outbound intercept? So 180, right? So basically, your nose of the aircraft must be, again, we are assuming less than 10 nautical miles here. When you're making the intercept, your nose of the aircraft must be 45 degrees to this radial, right? So 180 plus 45 will be 225 degrees. So you start off by flying a heading of 225 degrees, intercept this radial outbound, and you start going outbound. Until what distance? That will be your DME distance that is specified in the arc. For this consideration, let's consider a distance of 6 nautical miles, as I told you. Okay, right. But if you go until 6 nautical miles and then make your initial turn, you will for sure overshoot your arc. So usually a rule of thumb, you start making your turn 0.5 nautical miles before the arc. So as we are going outbound, let's assume when you make the intercept, you're approximately 4 nautical miles from the VOR. And you're supposed to make the arc at 6 nautical miles. So you start going outbound, you're going. At 5.5 nautical miles, you make your initial 90-degree turn. Now, as I told you, you need to figure out if it's a left-hand turn or a right-hand turn. Right. This is very simple. You look at your procedure or whatever ATC instructs you. If they want you to make an arc towards the west in this case, or towards the east in another case. Okay, you make appropriate turns. To make our life simple now, let's make arc towards the west. You can consider the east and just follow along and try to do the same thing towards the east of whatever I'm doing. Right. At 5.5 nautical miles, you make a 90-degree turn. You know, you're making a 90-degree turn. So your nose at this point, when you make the 90-degree turn, you will be at 6 nautical miles and your heading will be 180 minus or plus 90, minus in case of east and plus in case of west. So your nose will be pointing to a direction of 270 degrees. So this is what you'll be seeing on the heading indicator. At this point, your DME will be showing 6 nautical miles. Your heading will be showing 270 degrees, and your CDI will be centered with the from indication 180 radial. Okay. Now, next step, we did the first step, right? We made the intercept, we made our initial turn, initial 90-degree turn towards the right or the left, depending on whatever arc we are making. 2 steps are done. Now you change your OBS setting. Why? Why do we do this? Because you want to intercept the next radial. That's how you make the imaginary arc. As I told you, there's an imaginary rope between your fix or your VOR and your aircraft. What's the imaginary rope? It's the next radial. Okay, that's why we make a change in your OBS setting. So on your CDI, you turn the OBS and you set it to the next radial. So let's say we are gonna make changes with 10 degrees to get an accurate turn. So your next setting will be 190 degrees on the radial, right? So once you make this setting, how does this look on your CDI? So it looks something like this. Your heading, remember, your heading is still 270 degrees. We haven't changed the heading at all. We just touched the knob on the instrument and turned the course. Okay, we set a course of 190 degrees. Okay, on your CDI or HSI. We just set it to 190 degrees. How does it look? Your aircraft is somewhere over here, and your arrow mark somewhere like this, and with the from indication. You can do one more thing. You can tune the opposite radial, but that just makes it worse and to get a 2 indication. Okay, once you've done this, once you've set it to 190, you watch as you move your OBS, which is centered at 180, now gets deflected towards the 190. What are you supposed to do? You make an intercept so that this comes over here and gets centered. How do you do this? You make a turn by 10 degrees. You change your OBS by 10 degrees. You make a turn by 10 degrees, right? Your heading was 270. Your new heading should be 270 plus 10. Your new heading should be 280 degrees. Now, see this, 280 degrees minus 190 degrees is 90 degrees, right? So you're making a 90-degree intercept to the next radial, which is 190 degrees. Okay. So you basically, when your instruments look like this, you're basically in this position. You made a 90-degree intercept to the next radial, maintaining the same 6 nautical mile distance for 190. And then you continue doing the same thing for the next radial. You change the OBS by 10 degrees, set it to 200 degrees. You turn the plane 10 degrees. So you go to 290 degrees. So the difference in angle is still 90 degrees. You're making a 90-degree intercept. Right? This is how your next position looks like. On the CDI, it would look something like this. And your needle will be centered as well. You keep doing this, and the CDI keeps on moving in this direction, in the direction of the arc, right? And your heading is also moving in the direction of the arc. This is the clue. If your heading and your CDI are moving in opposite directions, then you're making an incorrect arc, okay? This is the basic concept. It's very easy. You just make 90-degree intercept to the next consecutive radial to make an arc in the sky while maintaining the same distance on your DME, okay? To make it much more simpler, in the coming weeks, I'm gonna upload how to fly this on your simulator and how does this look, right? This is the basics of a DME arc. So we finished intercepting a particular radial. We're flying outbound or inbound. The first step, we make an initial 90-degree turn. Then we change the OBS setting usually by 10 degrees. That's done. And you make 90-degree intercept to your next setting by turning 10 degrees towards the left or the right. That's done. And you keep repeating this until you reach your last radial. So let's say on the procedure, they have asked you to make an arc until 270 degrees. So you start with 180, you tune 190, make a 90-degree intercept, tune 200, make a 90-degree intercept. Keep doing this until you go up to 270 degrees. Once you make the 270 intercept, then you either fly outbound or inbound, depending on the procedure. It's as simple as that. Once you make the intercept with 270 degrees, for our consideration, let's say it's inbound, you just make a turn towards the VOR and then fly in that direction. That's your DME arc, okay? I hope this cleared up a lot of concepts in DME arc. If there's doubts, you can always leave comments in any of my videos and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you. And in the next video, we'll be talking about course reversals, okay? The whole concept of all of these videos is to familiarize you with how to come back towards a landing, basically from your en route portion to arrival portion, and then you're coming into landing. ATC can give these instructions, or these instructions may be published in your charts. These are published or given as instructions for two purposes. One, to maintain separation between other aircraft, and two, for obstacle clearance, which is the more important purpose, obstacle clearance. Yep, thank you. And I'll see you in the next video.